Call Baroness Fox of Buckley.
My Lords, I too welcome Baroness Lister's challenge. How do we build a fairer, more inclusive post-pandemic world? One prerequisite, in my opinion, will be how urgently we rebalance the relationship between the state and the individual. Whether you think lockdown legislation was too disproportionate or totally necessary, I think we can all agree that individual freedoms and rights have been suspended. Focusing on tackling poverty should not blind us to the devastating impact of impoverishing citizens by any continuation of an assault on individual agency or on people's moral autonomy to make choices. The new normal should not mean less freedom or less rights. Yet, despite lockdown restrictions slowly being rolled back, there are some worrying signs that government, both national and local, seem keen to cling on to their new powers and retain control over people's lives. Look at the debate over domestic COVID passports and certificates that Lord Beith referenced. These proposals would mean citizens requiring permission papers to participate in society. Before being able to go to the cinema, concerts, football matches, gyms, nightclubs, or even to get jobs, people potentially would have to obtain official clearance. This would equate to the government declaring every person a risk to others unless they prove they're COVID secure. Let alone the ethics of pressurising people to undergo medical procedures to participate in civic life. It could create the potential of a second-class citizenry, two sets of rules, two sets of rights. I'm delighted today to see that many in hospitality have signed a new charter named Welcome to All, and I hope the government will take note and also think carefully before embracing this biomedical digital permit society, as it can only be exclusionary, discriminatory and less free, and I don't want it as the new normal. But I've also watched with dismay at how authorities have taken advantage of lockdown to impose contentious policy changes without the inconvenience of democratic scrutiny. Take the example of road closures in the controversial low-traffic neighbourhoods, LTNs. While citizens were confined to their homes under lockdown, up sprang bollards and giant flower pots and barriers to block off residential roads. These and schemes such as bike lanes and wider pavements, etc., were boasted about by politicians as an example of building back better. But for whom? LTNs are sold as introducing green travel habits, but opportunistically citing unprecedented levels of walking and cycling during the pandemic to push for a new normal of less car use, I think is pretty despicable. And the Department of Transport talks of LTNs as helping to embed altered behaviours and demonstrate the positive effect of active travel. But this is a top-down new normal, with the state deciding what is good for people, whether they know it or not, or like it or not. And it can be tone-deaf and unfair to create new victims. LTNs, for example, have not eradicated pollution or congestion, just moved them to less well-off areas. The impact of these schemes on those who use the vehicles for their livelihoods has been devastating. Care workers dashing from home to home, delivery van drivers, plumbers, electricians now have 20-minute drives turned into hours in endless traffic gridlocks. And even in those quieter traffic-free streets, many elderly and disabled residents complain they feel stranded. There's been myriad rank-and-file protest groups that have sprung up. Have the local politicians listened to their complaints? No, instead, I'm afraid they've been demonised as selfish car rats on rat runs, macho gas guzzlers, even though most of them are women, and many of them use their cars to help their neighbours. As one activist notes, politicians underestimate cars as a community resource. So my main point for the Minister, can we ensure that when politicians promise to build back better, this won't be an imposed vision of what people want, that you'll ask them and then listen?
I call Lord Grocott.